Hello, hello, is this you, Maddie? Hyde locked the door, then hung up. Maddie was only 10, so she could not stay home by herself. She did as her mother said, locked the door, went upstairs, and hid in the hall closet. Suddenly, the front door opened, and Maddie became very scared. Then she heard people upstairs. She could hear people saying, "Where's the girl? We got to get her." Suddenly, the hall door to the hall closet opened. She tried to hide herself, but she couldn't. She saw 7 guys standing around her. There was silence for a minute.
Then Maddie screamed, and they shut her mouth and something knocked her out. When she woke up, she was in a sack in the trunk of a car. She was so scared and surprised she fainted. 5 minutes later, when she woke up, she tried and tried to get out of the sack. Finally, after 10 minutes of trying to get out of the sack, she was out. Next in her mind was trying to get out of the trunk. Once she popped it open, she rolled out of the trunk. She chased the car until it stopped at a warehouse. She hid behind a big bush to watch. As soon as they went inside, she moved to see if she could see what they were doing. She didn't see any sign of her parents. She looked in the truck and found that the guy driving left his driver's license in the truck and found out his name was Luis. She remembered what guy he was. He was the one that opened the hall closet to the door and found her. She heard the door open and went back into the bushes. She was starting to think who had her parents.
She thought it could be Louise or his gang or the plumber Mike that was over today, their friend that came over today, John. She saw the gang go over to the trunk and open it. When they noticed Maddie wasn't in there, they called out Louise. Louise was so mad and angry, he told all of his guys to go out and find Maddie.
Maddie started to get more scared than before. As soon as she saw them coming, she moved to a different spot. Finally, the gang gave up and left. As soon as Maddie heard their truck leave, she went to the abandoned warehouse. But as soon as she went to the warehouse, she saw Louise was still at the warehouse. But Maddie thought for a minute and went back to the bushes and hid again.
She started to think where her parents could be, but she could think she heard footsteps coming near her. She ran around the warehouse until she found an old tire. She should hide behind it. When she heard Louise walk across the street, she changed hiding places.
She forgot she had her cell phone, so she put it on and called the police. 5 minutes later, Louise was back, but he went into the warehouse. The police showed up a little while later. Maddie had moved to talk to the police. Maddie could see Louise's face looking out the window. The police knocked on the door and there was no answer. The police kicked the door open and searched the warehouse. There was no sign of Louise or Maddie's parents. Maddie was curious about how Louise had escaped. The police were starting to think Maddie was making some of this stuff. Maddie convinced them it was not made up. So the police called a couple of detectives to come on this case. Only one detective showed up. His name was James Bond. It was almost dark when he showed up, so the police told James Bond to go back home. Maddie had told the police the whole story in the car about how Dan was kidnapped her and maybe even her parents.
Maddie asked where the police were taking her. The police said the police station. Maddie asked if they would meet up in the morning with James Bond, and they said yes. Maddie spent the night at the police station but couldn't go to sleep because she was thinking about her parents. The next morning, they all met up at a gas station across from the warehouse. James Bond and the police asked if there was anybody at her house yesterday. When her parents were kidnapped, Maddie said to her friend John and the plumber Mike, the police asked questions about these 2 guys.
Maddie said they were both unhappy people.
The police asked, "Do you know where either of those guys live?"
Maddie said she knows where John lives, but not Mike.
"John's address," said the police.
101 Trailer Drive, said Maddie.
It started to snow a little bit, so they rushed over to John's house. John wasn't home. The police were suspicious. Maddie was also. James Bond asked if Maddie knew where John usually goes in his fun of the day. Maddie told the police and James Bond that John worked at a hardware store across the street. They all rushed over and minutes. They were there. When they couldn't see Dawn, so they asked one of the cashiers for the boss. When the boss came out, James Bond asked where John was. The boss said John had taken the day off because he was sick. James Bond explained Maddie's story and how they went to John's house, and he wasn't home. The boss, whose name was Bill, was very surprised.
James asked if Bill knew where John would go. Bill had no idea. Bill told James Bond, the police, and Maddie to come to his office. When they got there, Bill called John. John didn't pick up his phone. 5 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was John's phone number. Bill picked it up and said, "Hello." Then the other phone hung up. Maddie started to cry. The police told her it would be all okay, so she stopped crying. James Bond told all the policemen besides 5 to go to the warehouse and look for Luis and his gang. So James Bond, Maddie, and the 5 police went back to the station. Maddie asked why they weren't looking. James Bond told Maddie they were going to look up this plumber Mike to see his information. When they got to the police station, James asked Maddie if he knew Mike's last name.
Maddie didn't know, so she had to look at all the pictures of Mike's in North Carolina. She found the Mike she was looking for. She called out for James. He ran over there, found the address, and left. When they got to his house, he wasn't there either. James asked if he had any other plumbing jobs today.
No, said Maddie. He doesn't work on Sundays.
It's almost 8. I'm going to go tell the police to go back to the police station. Maddie asked James if she had to go to school tomorrow. James told Maddie no. They got in the car with the other police and went back to the police station.
The police said they saw a couple of guys going to the warehouse, but when they went in, they were gone. Well, how about 5 guys go to the warehouse overnight? 5 men volunteered and left. Maddie went to one of the benches and fell asleep, but James didn't go to sleep. He went to look out for John and Mike. He went to both of their houses. There was no sign of the men. James went back to the station. In the morning, all the police, James and Maddie, woke up at
7 o'clock sharp and went to see if the police had found anything at the warehouse. They saw nothing.
Well, so one of the policemen, we sort of fell asleep.
Fell asleep, said James.
Yes, it was a long day, said one of the policemen.
Well, said James, I guess we are going to have to keep looking.
No, said Maddie, my parents are gone forever.
No, they're not, said James. We're going to find them.
Where should we look next, said Maddie.
I guess we can all separate in different places, said James. Let's go, Maddie. Let's go. Maddie and James went down to the warehouse in a regular car, so Louise and his gang didn't know it's the police. When they got there, Maddie asked if she could go to the gas station across the street and get a soda. James said yes. 5 minutes later, Maddie was at the gas station, but she realized she had no money to spend.
While walking out, she heard people talking about her parents. Maddie walked over them and said, "Why are you talking about my parents?" They ripped off masks and tried to grab Maddie, but before they could, Maddie ran and started screaming. While running, Maddie wondered if they had her parents, or was it Mike or John that took her parents. Maddie finally reached James and told him about and was going to kidnap. James told Maddie to get in the car. They were going to the gas station. When they got there, James asked about the man that was just in. The clerk said he bought chips and drinks. The cashier asked why they were asking questions. "Because," said Maddie, "that man tried to kidnap me and maybe even my parents."
James asked him if he could look at the security film. "Yes," said the cashier, and went back to the back room. He looked at the film. They saw the man who tried to get Maddie. It wasn't Louise or his gang, Mike or John. It was a total stranger, but James knew him. It's one of our policemen," told Maddie. "They have to go find that policeman." Maddie said